This is an Ielts test simulation. My name is Alex. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Tennille, I'm 25, I live in Melbourne, but I grew up in Sydney, and I'm a creative person who loves to read, write and perform.
Fantastic. So part one, we're going to talk about your family. Do you have a large family or a small family?
I would say average. I was an only child until I was 11, and then my dad had a second family with my stepmother. I have 2 half-brothers and a half-sister. They're all much younger than me.
Can you tell me something about them?
My little brothers are obsessed with rugby. They're always playing in the backyard together, and my little sister loves gymnastics.
How much time do you manage to spend with the members of your family?
It's been a bit tricky recently because they live in another state, and normally I get up to visit them 2 to 3 times a year. And my mum lives close by, so I see her every week.
And what sorts of things do you like to do together?
Well, mum and I are very creative people, so we might do some craft together, maybe some painting, or go see a play. And whenever I'm up in Sydney, my dad and I love to go to the beach.
And do you get on well with your family? And can you explain why or why not?
I'm closest with my mum and my grandma because they raised me and they always spoiled me growing up. My dad I haven't always been close with, but we've gotten closer in recent years.
So part two, we're going to speak about a teacher who has influenced you. So I'll ask you where you met them, what subject they taught, what was special about them, and why they were an influential person to you. So I'm going to give you a pen and paper, so you'll have a minute to think about it and write some notes. Are you ready?
Sure. When I was in primary school in year 3 and we were focusing on the spelling and learning our times tables, we had this really charismatic and refreshing drama teacher who came in, and his name was Mr. Cameron. He was probably in his 60s at the time, didn't have much hair, and he was from Scotland, had this hilarious accent, and he would always sing these folk songs with us or tell spooky stories that had us on the edge of our seat. And one time for school assembly, he got everybody in the class to write a rap about themselves to perform in front of the school. And that was really great because I saw a lot of the kids in my class who were maybe a little bit shy or unsure of themselves really come out of their shell and showcase themselves in front of other people. And it was the first time that I realized that I might want to be a performer, thanks to his support and ongoing influence. I think that his style of teaching was really useful because it was more interactive. It wasn't focusing on how much you could remember or whether or not you could work out a maths problem. It was more about using your creativity and your self-expression. And that was really, really important because I hadn't had that opportunity until that moment to do something like that. My rap was about how I like to write and perform. I remember this one little kid. We would have been about 10 at the time, but anyway, he was this little shy kid, and he got out and he just smashed it. Like, we didn't know where it came from, just like this kind of gangster attitude, and everybody was laughing. I remember my stepdad came to watch the performance, and his laugh was so loud. Everybody in the hall was like, "Who is that man laughing?" I was like, "Oh, that's my family." Yeah, it was great. Very enjoyable, very funny moment.
Great. Let's move on to part 3. Thank you. So for part 3, we're going to discuss developments in education. So, how do you think education has changed in this country in the last 10 years?
Well, I finished my undergraduate degree in 2016, and at the time, the university was undergoing a lot of changes, both in infrastructure and management. The curriculum completely changed once I finished. I don't even know if my course still exists at the university. A lot more buildings were set up to accommodate for the increased intake of students, including international students. And I also finished high school in 2012, and there have been a lot of technological advancement since then. And I can imagine that students who are graduating today will have a much different experience than what I did.
And what sort of changes do you foresee in the next 50 years?
I think with the push towards more online learning, there'll probably be less classes available on campus and possibly more courses available online. Also in the classroom, things like smart boards being introduced, and probably curriculum online as well to do homework on the internet as opposed to textbooks.
Now, discussing the national education system, what do you think the expectations of today's school leavers are compared to those of the previous generation?
There are more people going to university now than ever before, and I think that sets a higher expectation in the workforce. A lot of trades require a certification for you to perform them. So your education doesn't finish when you graduate high school or get a job. There's a lot of high standards, I think, in many industries that require you to further your education.
And what role do you think that extracurricular activities have in education?
Extracurricular activities are incredibly vital, I think, in allowing you to strengthen your collaborative skills. Whether it's in the performing arts or in sport, working as a team is an invaluable skill set to have in the workforce.
Discussing different styles and methods of teaching, what method do you think works best for you, and how important do you think it is to group students into groups depending on their level of ability?
I think that interactive learning works best for me. That means playing games or maybe making things more creative. I remember when I was in year 5, we would sing our times tables, and that really helped me to remember things better. Even now in tertiary education, playing games can kind of awaken this competitiveness and playfulness that makes you succeed and push yourself in an area of study. I think that teaching style can accommodate many different levels of ability because it invites people in and makes them engaged.
That brings us to the end of the Ielts test simulation today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it.